either on mute or there is less of noise out in the background, because a lot of times we don't realize that our mics are on and then there's a lot of disturbance and everyone gets disturbed. Now, having said that, I'm looking forward to you all participating in this workshop. Before I call the president, I have someone special who will tell you why it's important to debate and what she has learned in this club, Elite Debaters. DTM Abir Nohi has been a member for about 3 years now. Toastmaster Abir, could you share with us in 1 minute what you have gained and learned in this club, Elite Debaters? Over to you, Abir.
Sure, Gayatri. Hello, everyone around the world. Yes, I'm proud to say I'm a member in Elite Debaters. Now, we all know that debates are everywhere in our life, not only with our children, with our spouses, but everywhere else. And today, of course, I will not speak about the benefits of the debate and how to debate, because you will know everything you need about it in the workshop today. But being a member in Elite Debaters specifically, it was a real milestone I achieved in my Toastmaster journey. I learned actually how debates are structured, or how is the structure of the debates, the science, the skills you need to make a debate. And the members of this club, or I can say most members in this club, are advanced members. So you can learn the best from these members. And the coaches, oh my God, the coaches in this club, they are always, they put you on the roast every time. They make sure every time that they, of course, in a friendly and fun way, to bring the best out of you and to stretch your potential to the maximum. And like all Toastmasters Club, it's a safe place to make mistakes. It's a friendly club. And the things that I learned specifically is that debate specifically, it boosts my self-confidence and it increased my critical thinking, because you know the kind of thinking we need for debates are different. And this is the safest place to learn and to improve yourself. So if you are guests here, and I'm sure many of you are guests, and if you're still not a member of a debate club or in Kuwait in Elite Debaters, I can only ask you a question. What are you waiting for? Thank you. Over to you, Gayatri.
Thank you, DTM Abir. That was very nice. Absolutely. Even I have learned a lot. But more about all of that from our debater extraordinaire. I'm calling this person a debater extraordinaire because he is seriously somebody who can give you a run for your money. I am known to be someone who can roast people very well, but then he knows exactly how to put things in perspective. I'm talking about our president, Toastmaster Prince George, who will take this forward and introduce to you our wonderful presenter. Toastmaster Prince, the screen is yours for now.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. I wish my wife also is on the same page as you. Unfortunately not. I get roasted at home every day. Anyways, coming to Elite Debaters, I mean, this whole journey has been incredible. Like Abir said, Abir has been one of our oldest members with us through this whole journey, and it's been an incredible journey. We've learned so much, so much. And one of the most important things, which was also highlighted by Abir, was the concept of critical thinking. It's something that we have to understand is also very much applicable to our daily lives, and it really helps us in our day-to-day lives. And we've all developed the skill through Elite Debaters in a very, very strong and prominent manner. So yes, it's incredible. Firstly, I would like to once that I'm done with that, I would like to firstly welcome so many guests today who are on board with us. I can see people from multiple countries, so many people, so many new faces. We're really glad to have everyone with us here today. It's a pleasure to host this meeting and have people from all across the world. And I'm sure you'll have a great time today, because today is going to be an incredible event altogether. About the workshops that Elite Debaters has had in the past, we started this run off with our legendary DTM Don Pradis that I'm sure all of you are aware of. He's someone whom we look up to a lot and who's been with us from meeting number 1, DTM Don. So he gave us a short preview on what on a very macroscopic level of what debating is really all about, the fine art of debating. That was the first workshop we had. I followed that up with another workshop on preparing and delivering a winning debate speech, which was the second workshop in our series of workshops. And today is going to be a mind-blowing third workshop that's going to be coming up from Elite Debaters. And to present this workshop, we have one of our founding members of Elite Debaters, one of the most prominent Toastmasters in Kuwait, and our pride to have this gentleman with us in Elite Debaters. Please put your hands together for DTM Noor Mohammed, who will be presenting this workshop on cross-examination and rebuttal. Over to you, Noor.
Before you start, DTM Noor, Toastmaster Sham Sundar will be timing you as you requested. At 4:45, we will have the green. At 4:50, of course, now it can be extended as well. At 4:50, he will be showing you the yellow, and 4:55 will be the red. And after that, well, you can take it up as and when it is. Over to you, DTM Noor Mohammed. Now, I'm going off on silence.
Thank you, Toastmaster Prince, Madam Toastmaster Gayatri. Thank you so much. Good day, fellow Toastmasters and dear guests. Hope you're all safe during this crisis. Let us take a moment for all those who are struggling during this current COVID crisis. Let's just pause for a minute and let's be silent for them. Thank you all. Thank you so much for maintaining that silence. And are you ready for the debate? Are you ready for this cross-examination workshop? So let's move ahead. Today in this workshop, we are going to learn about cross-examination and rebuttal. I'll be doing a short recap of the last two sessions, what we had. And then we'll get into the cross-examination, then the rebuttal, and then I'll share some resources and references with you. So how many of you know what is a debate? Can you raise your hand so that I can just see the show of hands? How many of you know what's a debate? How many of you know the Toastmasters form of debate? Great. So we'll get to learn about these aspects today. So what is a debate? A debate is a speaking event in which two sides use reasoned discourse to argue about a particular subject. The immediate goal of each team is to convince a panel of judges and the audience that its argument on the subject are better than those of the opposition. The emphasis is on the logic, but each team may use appeals and arguments that they also carry emotional weight. However, in a debate is generally characterized by the emphasis on the logical part rather than the emotional appeal. Okay. So why we need to debate? Now, everyone who participates in a formal debate receives an outstanding opportunity to develop the three basic abilities. One is the listening, second is thinking, and third is speaking. These are the foundations of the Toastmasters program. A debate setting encourages participants to make quick responses, present coherent arguments, and make clear presentation of their views. Nowhere else can a Toastmaster find a more ideal method for learning competitive speaking in a direct opposition situation. Now let's delve into, we also have seen in the past that DTM Don, he has also shown us what is a debate, and on a macro level, he has explained to us what a debate is. But in the second workshop, we got to know how to debate, the flow of the debate. So let's see how to debate. Now, there are certain terms which you need to get accustomed to. One is the proposition. What is a proposition? A proposition is nothing but a declarative sentence which advocates a change from the status quo, right? So any debate, it must begin with a proposition or a subject that needs to be debated. In all cases, it should be a declarative sentence, all right? So the debate proposition, which usually will be in form of one of the three types. The first one is a policy. Now, example of a policy is like resolve that human organ sale should be legalized in Europe. That's an example of a debate proposition which belongs to the type policy. Let's see what is a debate type, which is a debate proposition, which is a fact. Resolve that fossil fuels will be obsolete in 20 years. This is a proposition of fact. A proposition of belief is resolve that Shakespeare is the world's greatest writer. Now, how do you prepare for the debate? We have seen Toastmaster Prince George deliver an amazing presentation last workshop about how to prepare actually for a debate. Now, there is one thing which you need to know for sure, that is the word contention. Now, what is a contention? A contention is a set of smaller arguments which support an issue. When you're debating, for example, you might be having 4 or 5 contentions, and each of these contentions will have arguments, smaller arguments underneath it, which will support that contention. Now, what is presumption and the burden of proof? Now, the presumption in a debate is that the status quo is satisfactory until it has been proven otherwise. The burden of proof, therefore, is upon the affirmative, the team who wishes to bring about the change and who introduced the proposition in the first place, wanting to prove that the present conditions require a change from the status quo. Now, how do you build a case? You have to present each of your arguments in a formal, methodical manner. Now, it is very important to present your arguments coherently. Normally, a case is built on 3 to 5 major contentions, each backed with evidence to support the issues of the debate. Now, once we have prepared for the debate, we get into the structure of debate in Toastmasters. Now, some of you, I have asked a question earlier that how many of you know the structure of debate in Toastmasters or the form of debate in Toastmasters? Now, this is the form of debate in Toastmasters. Unlike the normal debates which happen outside Toastmasters, within Toastmasters, we have a debate structure which is slightly different. Now we have, let's say we have 2 members on each team. The affirmative team, which is for the proposition, they are always for the proposition, and the negative team is for the against the proposition. Let's say the affirmative team has 2 members in it, affirmative 1 and affirmative 2. So the affirmative 1 will give a constructive speech, let's say for 5 minutes. Then the negative 1 cross-examines the affirmative 1 for 3 minutes. Then the negative 1, who usually is the captain, will give a constructive speech for 5 minutes. Then the affirmative 2 cross-examines the negative 1. Then the affirmative 2 gives a constructive speech. Then the negative 2 cross-examines affirmative 2 for 3 minutes. Then negative 2 gives a constructive speech, and the affirmative 1 cross-examines the negative 2 for 3 minutes. The affirmative 1, who is the team captain of the affirmative team, will actually give a rebuttal and the summary for 5 minutes. Then the negative team captain will come up and give the rebuttal and summary for 5 minutes. Hope this is clear. Can I see a raise of hands if it is clear, or if you have any questions regarding it, we'll take in the question and answer session. All right. Now, why is this workshop? Why are you attending this workshop in the first place? You can find information on Google, you can find information in libraries and places like journals, you can find probably information elsewhere. But why are you attending this workshop? In debate, as in many other fields, there is no substitute for experience. And certainly no book or course of instruction can turn a person who lacks the necessary personal talents into a skillful debater or a cross-examiner. But there are things normally learned by experience, which are capable of formulation and illustration. And to those who have had little or no experience, such formulation and illustration will surely be helpful. Hence this workshop. Today I'm going to collectively give out my experience to you and tell you how to cross-examine properly. So what is cross-examination in the first place? So these are the topics which we are going to cover. What is cross-examination? Why cross-examination? How is it done? And few tips for cross-examination. Does anyone know what is cross-examination? Just anyone? In the chat box. Anyone typing anything in the chat box? What is cross-examination? Your own idea. Take a guess. Okay. Cross-examination is a powerful technique for elucidation of facts and exploring the truth. It is a period of time between the speeches. You have seen the constructive speeches, right? So in between the constructive speeches, the opponents ask each other questions to clarify and better understand each other's case. And if all goes well, an important concession for you is to win the debate. Ultimately, you can think of cross-examination as another speech, except instead of continuously talking, you actively engage with your opponent. During this time, you will be given an opportunity to demonstrate confidence and credibility that will allow you to become a more persuasive speaker and help you win speaker points. And that's how you win a debate. Most of the debates are won in the cross-examinations. Most of the best debaters are known to the judges in the cross-examination phase. So why do we do cross-examination? Before I delve into how a cross-examination is done, it is very important to understand why cross-examination is this important. The first and foremost idea why cross-examination should exist is to clarify things. It's very important to understand this concept. Cross-examination is to clarify things. Can anyone tell me why do we clarify? Why do we clarify things?
Because we want to know, are they really supporting us or they're just going against a topic what we are discussing about?
That is a good thing. That's a good point, valid point. Anyone else? To confirm the statements made, that's a very, very good point there. It's amazing. Now, the first aspect why we clarify is to ensure the listeners understand the speaker correctly. If you are speaking, the listener should be able to understand clearly. For example, if I am speaking something, you should be able to understand what I am speaking. That is the purpose of clarification. Now, how do you ensure that the listeners understand a speaker correctly? How do you do that? How do you ensure that the listeners will understand the speaker correctly? Now, the first thing is to address the misconceptions, misinterpretations, and misinformation. It's very important to address these three things. There are misconceptions sometimes by the speaker and also by the audience. There are misinterpretations. The audience might misinterpret the speaker completely differently. And there might be misinformation which might be given by the speaker. And you might be getting entirely different information. For example, we are surrounded by so much information that we don't know which information is actually true and which information is actually false, right? So how do you know which information is true? Let's see. There is something called critical listening. Now, what is critical listening? Critical listening in the context of a debate means using careful systematic thinking and reasoning to see whether a message makes sense in the light of factual evidence. Let me repeat that. Critical listening in the context of a debate means using careful, systematic thinking and reasoning to see whether a message makes sense in the light of factual evidence. Now, critical listening can be learned with practice, but it is not necessarily easy to do. Some people never learn the skill, never. Instead, they take every message at the face value, even those messages which are in conflict with their knowledge. How many of us have listened to a radio or, for example, a TV channel telling something, and we listen to the fact, and like a robot, we accept that fact without even critically understanding what that message is. Even if our knowledge, we might know that it is false, but we tend to believe it's true, right? That's our natural tendency. That's how media, most of the media controls us, whether true or false, it doesn't matter. But the thing is, the media controls us. Why? Because we listen, most of us listen without critically listening to what we are listening to. Now, the problems occur when the messages are repeated to others who are not yet developed the skills to discern the difference between a valid message and a mistaken one. So if the audience is not critically listening to you, they might not understand anything what you're speaking sometimes. Critical listening can be particularly difficult when the message is complex. Unfortunately, some speakers may, may make the message intentionally complex to avoid critical scrutiny. So for example, it's a very random example, a district treasurer, for example, when he's giving a budget presentation, might use very complex words, technical jargon, which makes the listeners difficult to understand what the proposed budget is. And also, he might avoid, by all these things, probing questions. How many of you have felt some people use very technical jargon and they make the sentences so complex that you do not understand what it is all about, right? And they sound like amazing people. Oh, wow, amazing English, a lot of complex terms, but we do not understand what the subject is all about. So it's a lot of camouflage which builds up, and then you don't actually see the real point, right? So that is about the critical listening. Now let's come to information and how we need to take in information. When information is present to us, we need to take that information in a particular way. Now let us see how we can actually take this information in a particular way. Now, how many of you know what CRAP means? Anyone? How many of you know what CRAP means? You can do a Google search. I will not bite you. All right. All right. So let's go to the presentation. Now, C means the currency of the information or the recency of the information. It's the timeliness of the information. When was the information published or posted? Has the information been revised or updated? Now, whatever, let's say you're in a debate. Does your topic require current information, or will older sources work as well? So when you're receiving information, you have to know whether this information is recent, is it current? The second one is the relevance of the information. The relevance is nothing but the importance of information for your needs. Does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? Now, who is the intended audience for this information? Is the information at an appropriate level Is it too elementary or too advanced for your needs or for the debate? Have you looked at a variety of sources before determining that this is the one which you will be using? The next one is the authority of the information, the source of the information. Now, who is the author of this information? Maybe you go to a doctor to get information on, let's say, fever. You're suffering from fever and you want to know what is it that it's causing the fever. Will you go to an engineer to ask about your fever? No, correct? So you would go to the right authority. So you have to know the author's credentials before you take in that information. In the web, we find so much of information written by so many people, and we do not know the credentials of those who are writing it. And we take that information and we believe that information is correct. So without knowing the credentials of the author, you cannot trust the information. It's very important that information needs to come from the right authority. So whenever you're preparing for your debates, it's very important not to quote Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is edited by anybody who has an account on Wikipedia and can edit that information. However, a journal, for example, is an established authority on a particular subject, right? So you can trust the information which is coming from a journal than from a Wikipedia source. The next is the accuracy of the information. It's the reliability, the truthfulness, and the correctness of content. Now, where does this information come from? Is the information supported by evidence? Has the information been reviewed, peer reviewed, or referred to? Can you verify any of this information in any other source or from personal knowledge? Does the language or the tone seem unbiased or free of emotion? Is it objectively written, or is it just some opinion of somebody? Many times we read books, we buy books. Somebody posted very recently on Facebook a screenshot of a book he was reading. And the author was claiming some things regarding leaders. And he assumed that the leaders are doing so and so, and that is the reason why they cling on to their power. The thing is, the author assumed that most of the leaders are like that, but that is a big assumption in there. So the information what is being presented is not accurate. It contains assumptions. So whenever you're reading or listening anything, be very specific. Keep your mind always engaged. Ask questions regarding whatever you're reading or listening. The next is the purpose of the information. The reason why the information exists in the first place. What is the purpose of any information? Is it to inform? Is it to teach? Is it to sell? Is it to entertain? Or is it to persuade? You need to know the purpose of the information. Do the authors make their intentions or the purpose clear in that information, or is it not clear? So it is one of the very important aspects to also know the purpose of the information. Now, once we have addressed the misconceptions, misinterpretations, and misinformation, we get to go to the logical fallacies section. Many times, many times, we do not catch the logical fallacies. We are human beings. We use language as a medium of communication. When we are speaking anything, we speak with an idea in mind, and we form our sentences, and then we convey those sentences. In that process, sometimes we make logical fallacies. Let's see what they are. Now, in the references section, I have included a link to logical fallacies. For example, there is Strawman fallacy, there is false cause, there is appeal to emotion, there is burden of proof, then there is, no true Scotsman, there is genetic. For example, if you say like, just because somebody is doing something doesn't mean it applies to everyone, right? So that's a logical fallacy out there. So be mindful of the logical fallacies. Apparently, almost everyone whom I have come across in my limited experience have committed a logical fallacy here and there. Even I did many times, and I do also commit logical fallacies. Sometimes I'm spared of my crimes, sometimes I'm caught. So be mindful of the logical fallacies. Now, once we have addressed the logical fallacies, once you understand what a logical fallacy is, then you're better prepared to be a better cross-examiner. Now, the cross-examination, the reason why we do cross-examination is to uncover the truth. It's very important to know this idea. You have to uncover the truth. And also to point out the assumptions. Like, as I said, somebody posted a page of a book. There are underlying assumptions. You need to work a bit on this aspect, because to know something is easy, but to know on basis of what that thing is standing is difficult. So you need to understand the assumptions. Let's say the sun is rising in the east. If I say the sun rises in the east, now you all take it as a fact, isn't it? Now it is based on the assumption that the earth is rotating in a counterclockwise direction. That is why the sun is rising in the east. If the earth is rotating in the counterclockwise direction, if, for example, if the earth starts rotating in a clockwise direction, the sun will rise from the west. So your fact will be nullified if this assumption, what you're having, changes. So it's very important to know the assumptions behind whatever you're listening or reading. So that makes a big difference in understanding information. Now we have understood why we do cross-examination. We understood that we need to do cross-examination to clarify. Then why we clarify is to ensure that the listeners understand the speaker correctly. And how do we ensure? We have seen various different aspects like logical fallacies, we have seen assumptions, and so on. Now, the second most important reason why you do cross-examination is to discredit your opponent's arguments. Otherwise, you're never going to win a debate. So you have to keep that in mind. This is the second important aspect of why cross-examination. So note it. Now let's get into how a cross-examination is done in the first place. All right. The first part of doing anything is preparation. So you do cross-examination or you do cooking. It is very important to prepare for what we are going to do. So the first thing is, to an outsider, when you research the facts and gather evidence, for anybody outside, a cross-examination might seem like a series of random questions, but the process is actually incredibly well planned and requires hours of preparatory work. It's essential to know the ins and outs of the case in order so that you can just ask the right questions. So it's very important that you start conducting your research as soon as you know that you're on the debate team. It's very important to research your facts and gather evidence. Now, you know very well from the previous slides how you have to actually find facts and gather good evidence, not evidence from unreliable sources, from reliable sources, which the information needs to be recent, the information needs to be relevant, the information needs to be accurate. So these are the fundamentals what you will use to do your research, to gather facts and to gather evidence. Now you need to plan your questions and anticipate the answers. Now, what you do is you create a document, and let's say you name it refutations. Write down all the refutations of your opponent. All right. First, you need to write down your arguments on one side and write down all the refutations your opponent will make for your arguments. To craft really good questions, you need to understand how these refutations are done by your opponent. Every single question that you're going to ask, as well as the answers you're anticipating, which you will be receiving from the opponent, should be planned out in advance. The goal is to ask a series of to-the-point questions, not open-ended questions, to-the-point questions that will steer the opponent into giving answers that will benefit you by revealing the holes. Holes means the inconsistencies, the biases, and the weak points in the opponent's speech. It's very important to plan your questions and anticipate the answers. The next aspect of the preparation is to find inconsistencies. What do you mean by an inconsistency? You have to find out the opponent's bias. First of all, you need to know the opponent. That is the reason why you have to know your opponent. It is to know their biases. Listen carefully for the logical fallacies and the information which they are giving you, and apply the principle of CRAP. Now, starting the cross-examination with the opponent's bias can really cast a very big shadow on the rest of their argument. So once you know that this person has a particular bias towards a certain thing, and you start your cross-examination with that question, that bias, it can really cast a large shadow on everything what the person is going to say later. All right. The next thing is to know about your opponents. Why is it that you need to know your opponents? It's very important to know your opponents. In Toastmasters, from my limited experience, I have noticed that some are deeply passionate about a particular subject. All right. Let's say if somebody has to say that the human organ sale needs to be legalized, some might get very personal regarding that. Right? Because it's something morally close to them, or something they've always believed in, and so it's a bias which they always carry. All right, so that makes them vulnerable during the cross-examination. It is easy to throw them off the line, and it's easy to throw them off the line of logic, for example, and get them to argue. Now, arguing is a cardinal or a fundamental mistake in cross-examination. You lose when you argue with your questioner or with your respondent. So never, ever argue in cross-examination. It's the cardinal rule. Now, once we have our preparation done, we get into crafting effective questions. The cross-examination is all about asking effective, not open-ended, but to-the-point questions. Right? Now, ask only one fact in one question, anytime. In a question, there should only be one fact. If your questions contain too much information, you're more likely to get an answer that you didn't expect. Sometimes the respondent gives you an answer that you completely did not expect. It's a big surprise. So you don't know how to react. So you have to be quick on your wit. So you have to minimize that aspect of expecting surprises. So keep your questions simple. Just one important fact in each of the question. So step by step, confirm each fact with a yes before you move forward with your arguments. In this way, you can advance your argument slowly but surely and you will retain the control of the situation. So the audience will think that you are actually making your opponent agree to whatever you're saying, because they're always saying yes to you. All right. Now ask with a leading and conclusive questions. Right. So almost every question should be constructed in such a way that your opponent has to answer just in one word: yes. Lead the opponent by stating the fact in form of a question, then moving on to the next fact. Now this allows you to stay in control and of the cross-examination while you eliminate the surprises. It looks like as if your opponent is agreeing with everything, whatever you're saying. Now, once you have done the preparation and once you have crafted effective questions, you come to actually conducting the cross-examination. Now, how do you conduct the cross-examination? There are two aspects to cross-examination. One is a person who is asking the question, and one is a person who is responding to your questions. That is your opponent, your worthy opponent on the other side, right? So let's see what are the things which are important for the questioner, and what are the general rules the questioner needs to follow, and what are the things which are important for the respondent, and how the respondent actually can follow certain general rules while responding. So ask questions to clarify arguments. If you are a questioner in a debate, you have to ask questions to clarify an argument. For example, what was your second point? Or what program are you supporting? Are you for or against reforming welfare? So for the consistency, I'm going to quote some things taken from the Breaking Down the Barriers: How to Debate. It's a 2000 edition book, and I'm just going to quote some things from this book. I'm going to include this as a reference in the reference and sources, so that I'll give you a document for this, so it'll be as a reference. So right now you just focus on what I'm saying, because I will be providing you with all the resources and all the source documents, including this presentation for you. So you can download all of it. So the first thing is to ask the questions to clarify the arguments. The second aspect of the questionnaire is ask questions about the quality of your opponent's evidence. For example, what was the date of that evidence which you have given? You can ask that to your opponent. Doesn't your evidence actually say that we are already resolving the food shortage? So these are some questions which you're asking about the quality of your opponent's evidence. Now, coming to the third point is asking questions to get your opponents to admit that their case has weakness. Let's say you're talking about sex education. Your case supports national-wide sex education, right? So the opponent will say, right. And your study comes from one city that shows that sex education works? Then the respondent might say yes, and the experts say that it will work well in other areas as well. Do you think it will work even in areas where there is serious community objections to sex education? The respondent has no other response rather than to say yes, because he has to defend his position. Now you will ask, any proof for this? Then the respondent has nothing else to say than our study concluded that it will work elsewhere. Now, what you have done here is effectively you have made your opponent to admit that the case has a weakness. So this is how you actually lead your opponent to admit to their weaknesses in their case. I'm sorry. Right. So the general rules for the questionnaire are, so do not make any statements. So the important thing is the questionnaire should not ask questions only. Okay, I'm sorry, the questionnaire should always ask questions only. They should not make statements. So do not present any arguments or new evidence when you are the questionnaire. For example, don't say, there aren't many accidents happening in this town. Let me read the piece of evidence according to so and so. So do not make statements. Instead, ask, how many accidents were there in the town in 1999? Or you can ask that, given that the pit bulls have killed people, how can you argue that the pit bulls are good? So that is very important to say, never ever make statements. The second one is, don't masquerade your arguments as questions. It's very important not to, camouflage your arguments as questions. So instead, don't say that, didn't we show there are homeless people? Or didn't I prove there are many deaths occurring each year? Instead, you can ask, did you show there are only few homeless people? Or you might ask, how many deaths each year do you claim occur? So instead of framing your argument in form of a question, you can actually ask a question in such a way to clarify and get information from the respondent. The next one is to be courteous. It's very important, very, very important to be courteous during your cross-examination. Treat your opponents nicely. Even if you feel that they're being rude, debate is all about being civil. If you want to, be aggressive, you can join boxing. So instead of saying, let's say this is how a series of questions and answers are going. Is Clinton administration acting on poverty? The respondent might say, yes, it is. What? Do you know anything? The respondent has no answer. What, do you know anything? The respondent might be shocked. Look, dummy, Clinton hasn't done anything. Got it? So that's very rude. So instead, you can say that, is the Clinton administration acting on the poverty issue? Then the respondent might say, yes, it is. Do you have any support for your answer? Yes, the respondent might say yes. And what is that support? So this is how this is the civilized way of how a cross-examination can go. Now, next is to give your opponent a chance to answer. Many times when the questionnaire is asking a question, they do this rapid fire of questioning, and rapid fire of questioning doesn't work. So it only shows that you have too many questions without eliciting an answer. So it's very important to wait for the answer from your respondent, then moving to the next question. Now, you have to maintain the control of the cross-examination. Now, you are asking the questions. You need to be in control. You should not allow your respondent to take charge and ask you questions in return. All right. So it's very important that, let's say, if there is a cross-examination like this, like, why would the United States attack China? Let's say the respondent might say that, well, you answer this. Why would China attack United States? So this is a written question by the respondent. All right. So you should not frame your questions in such a way that the respondent will actually reply to you back in a question. So you can always say, well, I don't know. I have to think about that. Do you have another question for me? So that's how you can actually dodge it. So coming to the respondent, now it's very important for the respondent to give clear, specific, and concise answers. If the respondent is not able to give clear, specific, and concise answers, he loses points with the judges. So it's very important for the respondent to be aware of this fact that they should give clear, specific, and concise answers. All right. Say, for example, if you are giving a very complex answer, people will not really respect your response. You have to be precise with that. So next is to ask clarification if the question is unclear. If you are asking, say, you don't understand the question properly, so you can always ask for a clarification if the question is not clear. The next thing is to qualify your answers. Qualifying an answer means, for example, a qualified no. Well, yes, but only if the road is built using the south route. So it's very important to qualify your answers. One of the examples is that. So the next is to retort questions that attack your arguments. For example, your case discusses the threat to cut off ties with the Mexican police. The respondent might say, that's right, until the drug traffic is cleared up, no ties with the Mexican police. Then you would say, won't that sour US-Mexican relationships? The respondent will say, no, it'll make the relations better by clarifying and resolving drug trafficking issues. So it's very important to retort to the questions that attack your arguments. So anytime you have to defend your arguments in such a way. Now, general rules for the respondent is avoid being rude. As I have said, being rude always, projects you as a person who is not civil. So it's very important to be civil, and it's very important to be courteous towards your opponent. It's same thing applies for the respondent as well as the questioner. Never give long explanations. It's very important not to give long explanations during your responses. And while you are responding to the questionnaire, don't read any new evidence. You will lose points if you read new evidence. And be honest. If you're not honest, then people will figure it out ultimately. So be honest so that you don't get into defending yourselves unnecessarily with information which might be used against you. So be honest every time. So don't ask questions unless you need to clarify your opponent's questions. So when you are a respondent, you never ask a question unless you want to clarify your opponent's question. So these are the general rules of the respondent. Now, a few last words which you might consider for how to go about the cross-examination is to maximize your ethos. Now, what is ethos? So ethos is nothing but actually it's an accumulation of your perceived confidence and credibility. Now, how can you actually boost your ethos? You have to be calm and level-headed. Stay professional. Maintain a loud tone, but do not be over-dominating. Be polite. There's a fine line between the confidence and arrogance. So if you cross that line of confidence and move into arrogance, you lose points suddenly, right? Stick to your plan. Whatever plan you have made for cross-examination, remember in preparation, we made a plan of how to go about. You write down all your arguments, then you see the counter arguments of your opponent. Stick to the plan in which you want to actually do your cross-examination. Write down all your refutations in one place, and whenever the speaker, the opponent is giving a speech, pick from the refutations those aspects and frame that questions, right? Sometimes in Toastmaster debate, you don't have that much time to actually prepare well in advance everything. So you have to do on the fly during the debate. So it's very important to stick to your plan, to make only minor changes to your plan as and when required. Do not argue at any cost. If you argue, you lose the debate. So make cards for each question. So any question you're making, you have a cross-examination, make a card for that question. Write on it what is the question exactly, and write down any evidences and any references or any inconsistencies regarding you might expect from the opponent. So make cards for each of the questions. Very important, because this will help you immensely to actually go through or organize your information. Now, when you're doing a cross-examination, it is really important to finish with one strong question for which your opponent is really bowled out. Like that person is really stumped. He or she doesn't have any response for that. Try to finish off with one strong question. It's very important because the judges remember the last thing only. So it's most of the judges, they remember the last aspect, the conclusion of your cross-examination. So always remember to finish off with one strong question. So that's about cross-examination. We will get into rebuttals, but before getting into rebuttals, do you have any questions regarding cross-examination? Anything not clear, so that we can clear that up before we go into rebuttals? Anyone?
DTM Noor, I have a question. I'm DTM Ramkumar here.
Yes, ma'am.
Very excellent, elaborate, and very clear content. The question is, is there any professional template as a checklist to follow?
Yes, in fact, I have created one document wherein the flow of the debate is clearly mentioned in that, along with all the aspects. For example, how to prepare for a debate, how to prepare for cross-examination, how to do research, information regarding how to gather relevant information, authentic information. All that is listed clearly for you. The flow is clearly mentioned in that. And you can download the document. It will be uploaded by Sunday. So I'll fine tune everything and upload it by Sunday, and you should have it by Sunday.
Thank you. Great. Clear.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you so much. So let's get into.
Just one doubt regarding cross-examination. Does
yes,
this come? Thank you so much, DTM. Does this cross-examination come during rebuttal? Because the first two participants will be for and against. They'll be speaking, for and against the topic. And does this cross-examination come during the rebuttal, or when does it come?
Okay. First thing is, if you go to the slide, if you see, I have shown you a slide about how the debate flows in Toastmasters debate. So let's say in the affirmative team, you have 2 team players or 2 team members. And in the negative team, there are 2 members, right? So the first affirmative team, the first person in the affirmative team is the team captain, all right? The team captain comes up and gives an affirmative speech, a constructive speech, all right? And then the first negative team captain will do a cross-examination, all right, of the first affirmative team person. So the first negative does a cross-examination of the first affirmative. Then after the cross-examination is done, the first negative goes on to give a constructive speech. Then the second affirmative will cross-examine the first negative, who is the team captain of the negative team. All right. And then after the cross-examination is done, the second affirmative will proceed to give on a constructive speech. All right. Once the constructive speech of the second affirmative is done, the first affirmative team captain will cross-examine the second negative team person. So that's how the flow is. I will tell you about rebuttals, how rebuttals are different from the constructive speeches. All right. So let's go into rebuttals. So what is a rebuttal? Now, rebuttals in Toastmasters, and how is it done, right? So what is a rebuttal? Rebuttal is nothing but it is to contradict or oppose, especially in a formal manner, by an argument or a proof. That is to rebut. Whereas to refute means it is to prove something wrong outrightly. Right? It is to demolish an argument. Rebuttals are the most exciting part of a debate because they are the least predictable. In your rebuttal, you will respond to the arguments your opponent has made in the debate. You will need to refute all their arguments thoroughly. While you'll be developing the rebuttal during your actual debate, you can actually prepare yourself to write a better rebuttal by knowing your argument, anticipating possible counter arguments, and familiarizing yourself with strategies that will allow you to break down your opponent's points. So that is rebuttal. In Toastmasters debate, we have clubbed the rebuttal. Usually in other debates, the rebuttal speech is a separate speech. But in Toastmasters debate, what we do is we club the rebuttal speech into the constructive speech and the summary. All right. For example, if you are the negative team captain, you must have cross-examined the first affirmative team captain. And after you cross-examine, the first part of your speech is a rebuttal. And then you continue with your constructive speech. Or if you are the captain and you are giving a summary, right? In the summary, you will actually include the rebuttal and then you will give the summary. So rebuttal is not a separate speech, unlike in other debates. In Toastmasters, rebuttal is clubbed into your constructive speech and your summary. All right. So you will give the summary only if you are the team captain. Only the team captains are able to give the summary at the end. So if you are the team captain, you will put the rebuttal in the front and then you continue with your summary. So that's the basic difference of rebuttal in Toastmasters debate when compared to other forms of debate. So preparing for the rebuttal is similar to the preparation of your cross-examination, because rebuttal is a part of your debate process. So on one side, you write down all the arguments which you have, and on the other column, you write down all the expected counter arguments by your opponent. All right. So when you write down in this fashion, you know that for this particular argument of yours, an expected counter argument can be so and so. All right. So this way you can organize information, your arguments properly. Now also, you need to take another sheet, write down your opponent's arguments in one column and your counter arguments for those arguments. It's very important to write these two sheets down if you want to really win a debate. So you have to write down your arguments and your opponent's arguments, and then your opponent's expected responses and your counter arguments. So very, very important. So how do you deliver a rebuttal in your cross-exam, in your constructive speech or in your summary? Now state your opponent's argument. Provide with one sentence summary of your opponent's argument. This is basically nothing but the structure of a rebuttal in your constructive speech. So your rebuttal will be, let's say if your rebuttal constructive speech is, let's say 5 minutes, 2 minutes of that is your rebuttal and 3 minutes will be your constructive speech. All right. So that's how the Toastmasters debate the constructive speech is crafted. So in your rebuttal, you need to mention in one sentence the summary of your opponent's argument. Then state your argument. Your position should be clear on that. All right. And it should be, as when you state your argument, it should be positioned in such a way that it is a better choice. The judges or the audience need to see your argument as clearly a better choice. You have to craft it in that way. And you need to create a choice for the judges. Break down the whole issue as a choice for the judges and the audience. So whenever, say, once you state both the arguments, you need to frame a question for the judges, like, and then ask the audience that what you would choose. So explain your argument in a sentence or two, and then you conclude with a strong statement and ask for a vote on it. So you can say that you can conclude with a very strong statement that, for example, you're asking that the human organs the sale of human organs need to be legalized. Let's say if somebody says a counter argument for saving lives, the sale of human organs will save lives. That's the argument on your side. And the opponent has stated another counter argument for it, that actually the sale of human organs wouldn't save lives, but it would endanger more lives. All right. So you can state as a choice to the judges that my worthy opponent has stated that the sale of human organs will endanger more lives, whereas we have seen that if there is an increase in the more donations of human organs by the sale of human organs, it does save more lives. Do you agree for it or no? So you have to make a question for that. So these are some of the interesting books you might find useful. There is one book, Cross-Examination by G. Coleman. So it's an excellent resource which you might want to read. There's Critical Thinking by Harvey Segler. This is also one of the very good books I have found. The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dabelli. This book is, you have to critically read it, because the author points out a lot of inconsistencies in various forms of human discourse. So it's a good book to read. You'll thoroughly enjoy reading it. So Critical Thinking, A Concise Guide, Tracy Powell and Gary Kemp. This is also another good book. It's a 4th edition, is really good. They have improvised a lot of arguments. The Tools of Argument, this is a must book for anyone who is a student of critical thinking. So it's like a book which you need to really go through. Being Logical is another book I would highly recommend. Winning at Debating, Charles Josephs. This book has been with me for a very long time. It's an extraordinary book. So How to Win Your Case. This one I have just recently downloaded. I've read a bit about it. I found some of the arguments which the author has presented as convincing. So it's a good book to read. I cannot give a good review on this book yet, but it's a good book as far as until where I have read. So this is a place where I'm going to upload all the resources and all the sources for this presentation. So you'll find everything in here. So the link will be online on Sunday, and I'll fine tune everything, the presentation, along with all the documents you need to start off on a debate. How to prepare, how to research, how to do cross-examination, how to write rebuttals. There are worksheets. You can just print them out and you can just keep writing in them. So that would be it. So thank you so much for listening to me today. If you have any questions, I'm ready to take the questions.
Thank you, DTM Noor, for a very elaborate and high quality presentation on cross-examination and rebuttal. Thank you so much. For all our participants, if you would like to ask any questions, you could either raise your hands virtually on the chat. We are looking and we will unmute you if your questions, if you want to ask some questions, please. Feel free to ask questions regarding to situational handling of cross-examination if that's something that's on your mind.
If DTM Noor, Prince, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead, DTM.
Thank you. Most of the times what happens is framing an impromptu question, a particular argument at one particular point, it comes to our mind. How to effectively frame precise question, because sometimes the words are there and it is very catchy, and it's while the speaker is talking and we get some words which is probably it is a rebuttal. but we catch it, we could not phrase it precisely. And we type it and we end up at, actually we have something and we said something. How do you improve upon that? Any question, any suggestions?
Yeah, sure, definitely. The first thing is preparation. You have to prepare for your debate thoroughly. It is very important to know all your arguments by heart and also all the counter arguments of your opponent. So once you have the solid base of your research, it is very easy for you to actually understand what your opponent is saying and quickly jot down some questions. Now, this comes with practice, DTM Ram. When you are practicing a lot, when you have participated in numerous debates, you learn techniques of how to frame questions effectively. So a part of it is your personal talent, which I have said. Personal talents are how you connect things, right? Some people connect things in very unusual and unique ways. So it is very important to build up on your natural talents and do some critical reading, critical thinking, and keep participating in debates. You will slowly improve on the skill to how to frame good questions. I hope
Thank you,
I have
DTM Noor.
answered.
Yeah, it's very good. Thank you. And listening is also, I think, play a vital role. Thank you.
It plays an
Good,
important role.
good reply.
Thank you.
Yes, we have a question from Tabassum. I'm just going to unmute Toastmaster Tabassum.
Good
Yes,
evening. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, DTM Noor, for a wonderful, in-depth knowledge that you have given us regarding rebuttals. What is my one question which I want to ask you about cross-examination? It's like we have these 2-3 points which we cross-examine the respondent, but many times they tend to give long answers and waste our time so that we do not ask them many questions. Now, how do you tactfully counter this? When a respondent just goes on and on with his explanation, how do you counter it?
Okay. The first
Thank you.
thing
Over
is
to you.
to, yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for your question, Tabassum. The first thing is you very politely try to interfere on if it is they are taking too much of your time and trying to explain in too long sentences their answer. You can actually interfere in between and you can tell that thank you so much for your answer, my worthy opponent, and then you can proceed with your next question if you feel that your time is being wasted. All right, or you can appeal to the moderator that the respondent is not actually answering the question but rather explaining it and taking up your time. So the best way is to appeal to the moderator. There will be a moderator to moderate the session, so please appeal to the moderator. That would be a best course of action.
Thank you so much. The second question which I would like to ask you, how many questions make a good cross-examination? Technically.
It depends on the arguments which were put forward by your opponent and which all arguments you want to basically refute. So it's very important. That depends entirely upon the speech by your opponent. So how many number of questions you might have in your cross-examination? Ideally, it's around 3 to 4 because a speech cannot contain more than 3 or 4 main arguments. So it would be around 3 to 4 questions. If you are going and with the leading questions, that is close-ended questions. Otherwise, if you have to ask questions so that you want to bring the opponent to commit to, to admit to the weakness in their case, yeah, then you will have more questions. The sole purpose is to basically demolish or address all the arguments of your opponent, because once you demolish all those arguments, then you have scored points with the judges. So if you leave anything standing, any argument of your opponent standing, they score points on it. All right. So it's an important aspect is to understand that you need to somehow refute all the arguments of your opponent.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Tabassum. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of DTM Ali Shahbaz Ali, our our regional advisor. Thank you, DTM Ali Shahbaz, for being with us for this debate workshop. Thank you so much.
So very well. So if there are any questions, please, you can send these questions to my email ID and I would be very glad to answer. So I'm putting my email ID in the chat box. So if you need any clarifications, just send your questions to this email ID and I will be very glad to help you out. Over to you, President.
There is one, there is Toastmaster Zainab who would like to ask a question. If
Okay.
we have time for one question, President.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, Gayatri. Sorry, I missed that.
Toastmaster Zainab, if you could unmute her, please. Toastmaster Zainab, you have a question? This is the final question. So if you could ask.
Good evening, all of you. My question is, if we are cross-checking someone, okay, and if they are giving answers on emotional aspect rather than logical aspect, but they sound more persuasive, and you know, sometimes even they get a good audience response. So in this case, I want to know how the judging takes place. Do the emotional aspect or the audience response matter to the giving points? It's just that is my question. Or should we just stick directly to the data and speak?
A very good question, DTM Zainab. It's a really apt question for this presentation. The emotional appeal of a speech is important, but debate is predominantly logical. So the judges will predominantly give marks for logical arguments, how coherently you have presented your arguments, and how effectively you have refuted and rebutted the opposition arguments. So it's very important. Let's say 80% or 85% is to the logical aspect of the debate, and 10 to 15% is for the emotional appeal. The audience might have a perspective they might be swayed with the emotion of the debate, but the judges are very specific, very objective, because the whole point of holding a debate is to come to the truth. There is no effective exercise in the world which is far more efficient than a debate to come to a truth. So if you are debating with, let's say, your husband, whether to buy a television or not, or whether you have to go for movies or not. So this is always a debate. And when a debate comes, then the truth will automatically come out if both teams are honest. Hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Noor sir.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, DTM Noor. Thank you, everyone, for asking your questions. Like DTM Noor said, the truth is out there, like what the X-Files has taught us all these years. And that's what it is about. That's what the whole cross-examination and rebuttal is all about, to come to the truth. And there's nothing but the truth, which is important in a debate, to make it extremely logical and coming to valid points on where the weight really is on this debate. Great. So we are going to have a link being put up on social media of this workshop. It will be on Facebook and Instagram. Please feel free to have a look at that and also do like. It would be nice if if you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And we are also open, by the way, to global online memberships, since we are going to be online for the next few months until September, at least, I think. So for anyone who's interested in being a part of our club, most welcome. We would love to have new people debating with us. Just to answer a question that was put up on the chat. Yes, we do have debates. In fact, we just concluded one few days ago, and it was one hell of a debate. We had something really strong. It was about organ donorship, which was a very strong debate. In case you missed that, there is a link put up on that as well on YouTube. once you follow us on social media, you will have your hands on that debate as well. Yes, that's what it is. And I think it's over and out from my end for this meeting. Gayatri, is there anything you would like to step in and ask?
If I
Yeah,
may add
absolutely.
a bit, I'm sorry. If I
Yes,
may
sir.
add, there is the next workshop is by the current District 20 Director, DTM Wafa Salman, and she would be presenting a workshop on the art of evaluation in a debate. So please do not miss this debate. She is an amazing evaluator. I have seen her do amazing evaluations, and her perspective into evaluation of a debate is highly useful for all of us. I believe that you will benefit a lot from this workshop. So please do attend the next workshop and benefit from the workshop sessions. Thank you.
Yes, DTM Noor, thank you so much for mentioning that. I almost forgot that from my end. It's on the next Saturday on the 23rd of May, and it's going to be it's going to be a gem of a workshop by DTM. Of course, it's evaluating debates. So she's going to take you through all the details which are important in evaluating who's really won this debate, right? That's what we feel when we see a debate, and she'll tell us exactly how it's done. It's going to happen next Saturday on the 23rd of May. I hand it over to Gayatri in case you want to put in something.
Yes, please. I have a couple of things. First and foremost, I think I still see DTM Ali Shabazz Ali here, our regional advisor. If he's here, if you could give us some feedback about this. I'm sure you heard a lot about in this workshop. If we could just get a few words from you, it would be very nice for us, and a word of encouragement.
Thank you, Toastmaster Gayatri. I'm happy that Wafa shared the link in the last minute, and I couldn't see the start, but I'm sure it has been a good workshop. I was there for the question answers. Thank you, DTM Noor, for bringing up such topics. Now, what I have noticed in my personal career in Toastmasters, at least, I've seen that some officers, some members, they want to express, they want to talk, but unfortunately, they're not good in debating. Call it, let's say, business session. Let's say expressing during ExCom meetings or any regular meetings. Some shy away, some don't have that capability to express. And we lose such officers, such members. They go on that silent mode for a long time where they just give up on themselves. So such series are very important to help our members express and talk about it, on what's in their mind. According to the parliamentary procedures, minority has the right to be heard and majority rules by their votes. So we should train people more on debating, on positive debating. Well, there are debates which happen just for I would say there's a mindset to reply to everything. That's also a part of debate. That's also happens in the world of debate. But in Toastmasters, we must help people express themselves during such opportunities, especially club business sessions. And I've witnessed plenty of them. So I'm very happy that this series have started. I look forward for the next one. And knowing Noor, he's the right person for this workshop. So thank you, Noor, and thank you, Wafa, for sharing. Over to you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Gayatri, you're on
Thank you, DTM. Thank you, DTM Ali. I was talking, and it was on mute and from my side. But thank you, DTM Ali. Those are very kind words, encouraging words. Absolutely, debating is an art and a skill. It's a science, and those who debate, they win hearts. On that note, I have, with your permission, can I ask everyone to please switch on your camera? Can we see everybody's faces? We want a good photograph. Milt, you look handsome with your beard. No, you don't do anything. Just stay as you are. Very handsome. Indeed. Aha. DTM Ram Kumar, can I see your face? You're out on a walk. And Toastmaster Rua, I see a beautiful young lady. Wonderful. Excellent. Toastmaster Anik, beautiful as always. Amazing. Toastmaster Shyam Sundar, we have some handsome. Toastmaster Panos Corel, handsome looking dude. Toastmaster Mathilde, welcome, wonderful. I see Alan, handsome looking regional advisor, DTM Ali Shabazz.
I
Yes,
usually
Shyam.
don't put the camera on without virtual background. I'm just doing it for you, Gayatri, and for such a good
Thank
subject.
you. Thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful. Can we please take a photograph? Shyam and Anwar, please. Let's all say cheese till our cheeks start hurting. Shyam, are we done?
Oh, yes, we're done. We took
Yes,
the picture.
indeed. Excellent.
Thank you.
Let me see who all is here. Very good. Excellent. Thank you all so much, so much. Next weekend, as we have said, next weekend we have our final workshop in our series, The Fine Art of Debating. The workshop, as Toastmaster Prince has already explained to you, it's going to be on evaluation, and our wonderful district director will be conducting that. That's the finale, and this will end next week. Next weekend will end our unforgettable May. And on that note, thank you so much for tuning in, attending this workshop. I'm sure you all made notes. Please subscribe to our Elite Debaters YouTube channel. Be one of our guests in our workshops. And please check out our Instagram and our Facebook pages. We update every single day. I look forward to seeing you all next weekend. If there's something else anybody would like to say, this would be a time. Otherwise, Toastmaster Prince, we can call the meeting to a close.
Yes, the meeting is officially called to a close, but for those who want to be around here for social networking or just to have a chat with us, are most welcome. We'll be here for a bit.
And for those who has never seen the sea during the lockdown, you can see or watch or enjoy the view here. A sea
Just wait,
front.
beautiful.
Very quiet.
It is,
Of
it is,
course,
it is.
yes.
It's never this quiet, but this is lockdown.
Yes, we are actually having a 24-hour lockdown now in Kuwait. So that's the reason everything is empty. And DTM Ram, I suppose, and I presume, has a curfew pass because of which he has access to this.
Yeah.
No, I think it's 4 to 6 people can go out for a walk. A lot of people do go out.
Ah, yes.
It's a
We have a
beautiful
4 to 6 p.m. An off time where you can actually walk out and explore, but it's just walking, no vehicles.
Yeah.
No vehicles.
Our champion George. So just
Yes,
one suggestion.
Yes,
Why
DTM.
you are lucky that you are a champion and prince both. So I choose to call you a champion. For people out of the district who don't know, he's a champion evaluator in District 20.
Thank you.
With the most welcome. With this topic, I would recommend our presenter Noor and the team to work on something different under the different title banner. I would recommend, come up with a topic, debating for introverts, because I'm quite serious about these experiences which I've seen. Some silent members or introvert Toastmasters. I know 2-3 cases where they have left Toastmasters. Trust me, they have left after club business. Normal motion was on the floor. They couldn't express. They just kept themselves quiet and they just walked out. And these are two, at least I can easily picture 2 people leaving because of a club business session. So maybe we can have something similar, debating for introverts. I don't know, what do you feel about it?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, DTM Ali. I mean, it's a very, very valid point because, to come out and actually put your opinion forward is not something everyone can do naturally. Some people have some challenges on that. So well noted. We will definitely consider that as a club and probably come out with one of our workshops on that. So, we'll have new people all around who would also probably step in and be a part of it to explore what it's all about, basically.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks for your
this
feedback.
this was the first time I heard about debating in Toastmasters.
Oh.
Oh, that's that's nice. We've been around, but you know, to be honest, it's only recently that we've actually gone on top gear with our PR. So that's how, and plus, of course, the birth of online meetings, which has really changed the course around.
Yes.
That's the reason we have so many people who are listening to us and hearing us. So, of course, that really matters, and that's the reason everyone is aware of what's happening around. So I'm sure over the next few months you'll hear a lot more.
Yeah, because we have a regular club with speeches and stuff, so not debating.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what we really like the most here is we're also utilizing the critical thinking aspect of you know, of the whole development as Toastmasters. So that's where we really add value in debating. And when we have people of the similar mindsets who would like to come up and talk about a certain subject, it makes it really you know, really a very good meeting. You should witness our debates. You missed one, but there's a link put up, like I
Yeah,
did
I had
mention.
my own club meeting. I would have been there last Wednesday, but we had our regular club meeting, so I couldn't join, unfortunately. So
No problem, man. I mean, we will have
next
one
time,
again next month. We will surely
I
invite
think
you for
it's
that
on
as well.
Monday, the 25th or something. I read something about it, but
Yes, we had on. I mean, last Monday we had our meeting, our debate. We have something lined up next month. I mean, not this month. I don't think we're going to have something this month, but next month we will have something, and we will surely invite you for that.
yeah, well, I will look at the Facebook page and
Yes, please. Our
hopefully I'll
Facebook
see it
page
again.
is Elite Debaters, and Instagram also. Somebody had asked. We
Yes.
also have our Instagram Elite Debaters, and our YouTube channel is elite.debaters. So if
Okay, I
you
will look
are,
on Facebook because I don't have Instagram, but
that's fine. Facebook connects us also. That's perfectly fine. And we are.
I'm a member of resources for Toastmasters, and I see everything over there. So,
Well, I'll make sure that I post all details about our next meeting on resources. Yes, Toastmaster Ruwa, you raised your hand.
Well,
Yes,
I want to thank you very much for this informative and workshop was brilliant, and really like to information and reach it to my club in Baghdad Toastmaster. It's really supported thing, and you inspired me a lot more, and it was great. And I look for the next meeting to have this meeting with you again. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that feedback.
To add on to what Prince was saying, debate is a form of, it actually is Toastmasters on steroids. It's exciting. You get to give speeches in an effective manner. You get to critically think, and also you get to help those people who are introverts, like how DTM Ali was saying, that you need to focus on these people. Like if you want to put somebody on a fast track course on Toastmasters, bring them to a debate. So debate will get them excited instantly, and they'll be motivated and inspired to actually give good speeches, and thus building the confidence becomes a fast track process. So the more the involvement, the more the benefit. The sooner you come out of your comfort zone, debate will immediately put you out of your comfort zone, because people will attack your opinions, people will attack your biases. So the sooner you feel the pinch of it, the sooner you will either rebound, or you will you'll go back, but you will come back with a stronger person, as a stronger person. So my advice, if anyone has to build confidence, send them to a Toastmasters debate. It's a safe environment where people will not be criticized as a person, but will be criticized for their arguments. So that would be a good option. So Toastmaster DTM Ali should take note that probably promoting debates will result in quick growth and confidence in those introverts.
True, absolutely.
True.
Yes, Toastmaster Prince, if that is it.
Gayatri, I just had one last comment on what DTM Noor was saying.
Yes, Toastmaster.
Now, here in one of the debates, we had the second debate club in Asia once upon a time in Bahrain. That was Bahrain Debate Toastmasters Club, which closed down. I had one individual who asked me one very good question. He joined Toastmasters, but he told me that why am I being forced to debate on something which I don't believe in? If I vaguely remember, this was probably 8 or 9 years back. He said we tossed a coin, and he went to the negative side, or I would say side which does not agree. He said, no, I want to be in affirmative because I believe in this topic. So, but the rules of the club were such, only toss of the coin can decide. He kept saying, I don't want to be, but he was forced to be in that team. He did a good debate, but then he didn't last long in that debate. He said, when I don't believe in something, why do you push me? How do we tackle such situation? Anyone can answer, maybe Noor, maybe.
Yeah. The important aspect of a debate is to exercise your critical thinking and your critical listening skills. So irrespective of what you believe in, you need to be objective about the truth. Let's say you believe, let's say the sale of human organs. That's fresh in my mind. So some people, for them, the sale of human organs is morally challenging for them because they don't believe that such kind of thing, it's a horrendous thing, it's outrageous for them to even think of such a topic. But when you involve yourself in an exercise which improves your critical thinking, irrespective of what side it might be, all right? So you have to convince the person that when you do this exercise, you will gain a different perspective. So there is no harm in having a different perspective. Just because you see a different perspective doesn't mean you need to accept that perspective. The decision always remains with you, whether you want to accept something or reject something. Just because somebody put you on the other side of the debate doesn't mean that you are going to accept that perspective. You are only just going to debate that perspective in a very objective fashion.
If I may just add to what DTM Noor has just mentioned, DTM Ali, just to address your point. It's a very valid point, and we do come across this when we are preparing for debates. So one of the most important things that we do while preparing for a debate, again, because the organ donorship is fresh on my mind, the team that I was coaching, the negative team, we actually prepared even for the other side of the argument. So what happens is you are balanced with your views because you know that even the other side of the argument can come up with really valid points, and you have a 360-degree review or perspective of the entire argument altogether. So not only does it increase your own knowledge on a certain subject, it gives you different perspectives, and thirdly, you are actually competing on both sides of the game. But the only thing is you're going to present one proposition, but you may agree with the other side as well. So, it's a very overall growth that you get as a debater. That's what I want to add on this.
Thank you, DTM Noor and our champ Prince. This is something which I benefited from today. I mean, 9 years I was waiting for such an answer. I wish I knew this that time. I could have made sure that member didn't leave those masters. Thanks a lot. It really means a lot. Thanks.
That's a compliment, DTM Ali. Thank you so much. We're really glad you use your kind words. Thank you so much.
DTM Ali, this is DTM Ram, and very nice to hear you on our ED. I'm a member. I just joined, and it is really good to interact with you with the wonderful questions, which is pertaining to the members' growth. You always see either it's membership renewal or member satisfaction and members' growth through knowledge, skills. That is more important. Always you have prioritized. On a lighter note, what the question, I really liked it. Solitude. Introverts, through the members who are listening, solitude. I mean, people who want to be in their comfort zone and they don't come out, they are very good in their private zone. They have questions, They will write it, they will answer it, they'll keep it in their book, but they don't pour it out. It was wonderful to have you to have that question in our ED meeting, and we look forward to see you again many of the times, not just once. All the best, and wish you happy Ramadan.
Thank you,
And
Ram.
on another note,
Thank you, everybody.
I would like to jump in over here. This is, I think, I speak on behalf of President as well and the EXCOM. We'd be very happy to have you as a member in Elite Debaters, DTM Ali Shabazz.
Sure, very good.
I would try my best with the current commitments, Gayatri, but I'm sure I will be attending a lot from now because
Thank you.
so this session has really helped me learn something, and I used to be part of a debate club, but in this session some questions were answered which were unanswered all these years. Thanks a lot.
Was that debate
That's
club by
discharged.
Khalid Al Kood, the elite, the Bahrain debaters?
Yes. That was the
Yes,
club which
I
closed
remember.
down.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember that. Yep.
Thanks.
I'm
bro.
Still
missing
have the
DTM
manuals from that.
Wafa. Where is Wafa?
Yeah. There was one more question, if I may. It's more of a suggestion. In
Yes,
in
please.
the debate club where I was, in the debate club where I was once upon a time, the same debate club. How there were some people from we have people from all walks of life. Some people really take it personally even when the debate was over, and we saw arguments or not the discussions going on till they reached the car park. So how would we develop the club bylaws in such a way that debate is done, have a joke session, or let's finish it off? But we see it going till the car park, and I personally was involved in this process. We go till the car park, the debate is on. How do we cover up for that?
Yeah, this is an expected scenario when when a debate club is new. This kind of a personal, when you attack somebody's personal beliefs, they take it very personally and they get aggressive, and some are very passionate about a thing and they take it seriously. It is a part of the process, DTM Ali. This is for a new club, debate club. But as and when you bring in experienced debaters and you tell them the fine inner workings of a debate, you tell them what debate is all about. It is about it's a critical thinking and a listening process. It's an endeavor wherein it improves your thinking ability and your speaking ability, rather than getting defensive about what you believe in or what you don't. So that's a process. So my suggestion would be, set an example. Only example. When you set an example, then only people will follow. If you don't set an example, nobody will follow you. So that applies for a club, person, or anything. Set an example. Set good examples. By setting good examples, people see that and they follow that.
Just to
Thank
add
you,
on to what DTM Noor just mentioned, also very, very valid point. Just to add on to that, DTM Ali, what we've noticed during these debates is we are all emotional beings, right, as human beings. So what we've noticed a lot is the emotions as debaters come out much more than the actual facts and figures which are being spoken about. Sometimes the emotions are stronger in some debates. And that's what moves on to your car parking, the emotions more than the subject. So when we are talking to people who are or coaching debaters who want to come up and debate, the first thing that we usually discuss to them is attack the issue and not the person. Okay, so when we do that, what we do is we kind of compartmentalize the thought process where you're specifically talking only about the issue and not worried about if the other person was harsh with you during a cross examination, or if the other person was dominating you during a discussion, or if the points were invalid and it bothered you emotionally. So we just compartmentalize these two parts of a whole debate, and you specifically focus on facts and figures, and that can be concluded during the debate, and the energy calms down. Otherwise, if we get personal about it, that's what drags on beyond the debate. That's what we've seen all through.
Thanks, Prince. Thanks, DTM Noor. I promise that was the last question. Thanks.
No, it's our privilege, that you are taking so much interest in the debate club. So thank you so much. Thanks.
If there's anybody else who would like to ask a question or say something, I think this would be a good time. I think there's nothing. Then
Thank you so much for Toastmaster Prince, DTM Gayatri, Anwar, DTM Bafa, and everyone, Adam, who really arranged for this workshop. I am very grateful to you all. Thank you so much.
it was
Thank
our
you,
privilege. It was
DTM
our
Noor.
pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll conclude the meeting now.
Thank
Good to see you, Malcolm.
Thank
How
you,
are you?
everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
President, members,
Bye.
Gayatri,
Thank you,
Alicia
Ram.
Thanks a lot.
Balsa. Noor, wonderful. Hats off, man. Rock on.
Always.
Yes. Kudos to elite debaters. Where is Anwar Adam? No question, nothing. He's there in the team or not?
Anwar just does his job. He doesn't talk much.
We all have different work. We all have different roles to play. And get back
Yes.
home, Ram. It's going to be 6
Yes.
o'clock. Get back home.
Yeah,
Bye.
I just that's a building. That's a building. I'm very
Okay,
close. Maybe
okay.
5 minutes walk. Thank
Okay,
you.
very good. Thank you so much. Bye
All
bye.
right. Thank you. See you. I'll be leaving. Thank you. See you.
Anwar, we can close the meeting.
Actually, Wafa is a host. I'll call up Wafa to close the meeting so that we can
All right,
stop the
okay.
recording also, and then I'll
Yes.
start. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Hey, can you tell me what the exact link is for Facebook?
Milt, I'll add you to that. I'll send a message to you. Don't worry. I'll make sure that
Okay,
you're
great.
on it. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you. See you later.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.